Howdy, it's Jamie. It has been a while. I made the mistake this semester of taking two math classes. My advisor told me that it was a bad idea to take two math classes at the same time in the same semester. And I thought, well, I'm pretty good at math. I shouldn't have to worry about that. But I made the mistake of not checking whether they were 16-week courses or 8-week courses, and they were both 8-week courses, which meant the whole curriculum squeezed into half the time for both of the classes, and I was taking them both in the same term. So I kind of had to lock in. But now I've finished both of them. I've taken my finals for my calculus class. I got a 100 on the final. Thought I wanted to share that with y'all. I'm pretty proud of that. But the reason I'm making this video today, I found earlier this week I've got this flash drive, and for the longest time every backup of this world all the way back to 2014 was on this flash drive. And I realized earlier this year, I was like, maybe it's not the best idea to have the only copies of these files be on this thing right here. So I started trying to transfer them to cloud storage. I was putting them on like my Google Drive. And in the process of doing so, I somehow made the mistake of deleting like the majority of the oldest backups of this world. So everything after like 2021 was safe, but like everything before that was just gone. And I thought I lost them forever, but then while I was in the process of helping my partner switch over to Linux, because we're doing that this month. We're not updating to Windows 11. While I was in the process of doing that, I realized I had moved these files onto that computer while I was replacing the motherboard on this thing. So I've got them back now, and I put them all on the cloud, and I put them on here. They're still on there. It doesn't technically follow the 3-2-1 rule, but it's enough to give me peace of mind. I wanted to make this video today because I wanted to explore some of these older versions of my now 11-year-old Minecraft Forever world. But before I do that, I wanted to give you a quick guided tour of the historic Burnt Spruck district, because I've walked through here I think once before, but I haven't necessarily explained the full history of it, or I haven't explained it in as much detail as I'd like to. And we're going to focus specifically on this part of the world, I think, because there's a lot to it, and it's the area I think that has changed the most. And I think there's a lot more interest here than in any other part. So for starters, this building right here, I'm in the modern version of the world. We are on day 6227, so we're in the 6200s. I like, because it's a 4-digit number, I like to pretend that that's the year, like that we're in year 6227 of the Incran calendar. So we're in the 6200s. This district was established all the way back in 1550, so it is close to 5,000 years old. This area right here. I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense just historically, if that would be very realistic, but it is. it is supposed to be a fantasy world that I'm building here. But anyway, I had shown off this old building. I built this probably when I was like 15 years old. And you can kind of tell that it's like 2015 Minecraft kind of building style, especially for somebody who maybe isn't the best at building. I had a real affinity for the oak wood and cobblestone look. I think I thought that it was just so good, and I did it everywhere. And another thing I did, which looking back on I kind of hate now, is anywhere I had like a hill that was like I didn't feel like lighting up, but it was like right next to an area that I was building on, I would build a wall to block it off and to keep the monsters from coming over. And I've got one over here, and I've got one that separates burnt Spruck from the province or the district of Ladder Ecken. So over there, that is Ladder Ecken, and you can see there's another hill right there, and I blocked it off with a big ugly cobblestone wall. And that all right there, these are like the oldest parts of this area. And I had mentioned the inn over here. That's what this is, the inn. I had mentioned in a previous video that the reason that I feel fine with such old ugly buildings in my forever world, buildings that I'd put up when I was in middle school and didn't know what I was doing as far as building was concerned, the reason that I'd feel perfectly fine having that right next to a building like this is because in my head I like to imagine that these are old architectural styles. Like, it reminds me of, you know, in history textbooks when you'd see like an archaeological dig of a site in Mesopotamia, like an ancient Sumerian like baker's house, or you know, like a very kind of Mediterranean, like the Italian style houses that are made out of like gesso or clay, or like an adobe house where it's just kind of rock. Like that to me is kind of what I try to imagine this as. It's just an older architectural style, and this is more modern. And I try to have that thought in my head, and that's all well and good. But in order to build this new stuff, I did have to kind of tear down some old stuff. There was some stuff that was here that I decided wasn't important enough to be preserved for posterity, and so I just tore it down. I just tore down some of this old stuff, and honestly, some of this stuff up here in the Ecken, the former Ecken over here and the Ladder Ecken over here, I think I'm just going to tear it down. I don't like the way this stuff looks. It serves no purpose, and a lot of the stuff that a lot of the things I used to do here, I have moved elsewhere. I've got old farm plots that genuinely I do not use, and they're taking up space. They accomplish nothing, and I don't think they're worth preserving. So I'm going to get rid of them. I'm going to renovate the area, and I'm going to be fine with it. And you might be wondering how I can justify tearing down stuff that's so old, and the reason is because I've got so many old backups. You want to make backups of your forever world not just because there's a chance that, you know, your hard drive might fry, but also so that you can keep building in the same place without feeling like you've lost something. Because at any point in time, I can load up a backup from 2015 and see what this world used to look like. And I don't have to worry that I've destroyed it forever, because it's always right here. And it's also on that one and on the cloud, because you got to have multiple different devices and different drives that you back up on. But in any case, I'm going to plug this in right now, and I'm going to load up the oldest backup of burnt Spruck that I can find. So, I think one thing that's kind of funny is I had not come up with a name for the world yet. When I was in middle school, like 2014, 2015, I used to have a YouTube channel. I don't think it was this one. It might have been another one. I ended up deleting it because, in 2015, the cringiest thing that you could do in middle school was have a Minecraft YouTube channel, and I got picked on for it, and I ended up deleting all of the videos because I was embarrassed, and I wish I didn't do that, but that is lost to history. But because it was, because I would record videos of like my Minecraft Let's Plays, I wanted to have a world that I can play off camera, and so I called this world Off Cam. These days I call it Incra because, world building reasons. That's what I've decided the name of the world is within the world is Incra. But these oldest backups, it is just called Off Cam. So we're going to go in, this is Off Cam 1557. So this is 5,000 in-game days ago. 10 years in real life. If I was wise, I would have gone back to the version. There we go, okay. I used to do this with all my backups. I would encase myself in rock just to keep me from I called it the Burnt Forest Village. So, fun fact, the word Phoenicia comes from the word forest, because the earliest name for this place was Burnt Forest Village. This is Burnt Spruck right here. This is the oldest version of it. It is still here, and I can revisit it whenever I want. I had a storage room over here, does not exist anymore. I had a tree farm over here, doesn't exist. This rabbit pen doesn't exist. I really kind of wanted to preserve the shape of the land as best as I could. And so this peninsula out here is kind of shaped exactly like the dock. This out here is going to be a dock. I kind of clear it out, and I build this great huge dock out here. This right here is Slame Island. Over here is going to be the Bunge. That is the area that y'all have seen the most of. This is the Spruckler Jep. That is the Spruckler Vuge. Spruck Lake. Up here is Vinlands. And then the Ecken is these kind of narrow plains right here. That lake right there is where the city of Acuna is going to be built. That roofed forest over here is Everskanal. That is Capicona right here. But right now, all that's here is just this little area right here, and a few burnt stumps. And I think that's pretty cool. But let's go forward a few hundred years in time. I think let's go to the 1700s. So now we've come along a little further. The fence surrounds the majority of the area that was cleared out by the fire. There is a path that comes around here. This is this kind of style of path. I went into creative mode for this. The style of path we've got here is a style I like to call Origineer, because it's it's a very old kind of, it's a very old way that I used to do things. But the completed storage room here, styled up a little bit. It's got leaves on the inside for some reason, and it's very claustrophobic. You'll notice that the chests have item frames instead of signs. I had not started my conlang yet. This is still, I believe, 2015. This is just like December. The last one, I guess I kind of started this area late August, early September. This is now December of 2015. But there still is kind of just nothing out here. There is, I do want to show off, Slame Island I've settled by this point. There is kind of nothing over here either. Slame Island I settled in 1661, so 111 years after Burnt Spruck was settled. I settled what ended up being, at first I called it just New Spruce, then I called it Slame Spruce, and I spelled Slame very differently. You can kind of, it's a little bit more obvious, the system that I used to name these places. I used a lot of portmanteaus where I'd take like two different things. I think I've explained this before, but I'd take two different things that were important to the area and I'd smash them together into one word. This one, I settled the island for clay and slime, so I smashed those two words together. You can really tell with this spelling. I ended up, obviously I changed it to something a little bit more legible. Over here, this is where the nether portal would be. I might need to turn the render distance down. Anyway, let's move forward a bit to, I think, the 2000s. Okay, so I want to talk about the pumpkin. I load into this world and I'm wearing a pumpkin on my head. That's because at the time I had a texture pack that changed the pumpkin vision to a little vignette around the side of the, it was a custom texture pack. I'd made it all by myself, and it took this pumpkin and it made it like, I wanted it to be kind of like a creepy texture pack, and so the pumpkin made a very cinematic view. I'm gonna go ahead and go to creative again. So now you'll notice that the dock has been complete. I've also built the mob spawner in the middle of the harbor. The storage room does not have a top on it. I don't think I ever did put a roof on it because I anticipated that I would just continue building up. The inn still hasn't been built. The inn is pretty old, but it is really not that old, all things considered. This is the mine right here. You just kind of jump down. This is the strip mine down here. I will say one thing about about having a world that's as old as 2014 is you get a lot of strip mines that run into each other. I notice I tend to try to move them around, but then I run into old old tunnels because they're all at y equals 12. I put a little book in here, and I think I was going through this yesterday actually, and yeah, that's cute. Look at that. I really wanted to feel I wanted it to feel like history class, but I wasn't very good at writing, I don't think. I guess this was written in 1804. We're in year 2045. So there is a little bit up here. This is the reason that this area over here is called former Ecken, is because it was the one that was built first. And over here, this is going to be latter Ecken. This building right here does not exist anymore, but I've got an exact copy of it in latter Ecken still. The reason I called it Ecken is it started out, it was, in fact I might still have the sign for it. Equine. I spelled it without an E, I think, for a while, but originally it was equine, I think, is the idea behind it, because there are horses here. There's a bunch of horses that spawned here. And then eventually I took off the E, I guess, pretty early on, and I'd call it Equine, and then Equine became Ecken, and for a while I spelled it like this, but these days I spell it like that. So Spruck is what it's called now. And in the modern Phoenician, they actually, instead of using Spruck to call all their place names, instead of having a Burnt Spruck, Slame Spruck, Ecken Spruck, they just call Ecken Spruck the Ecken. So they throw a definite article at the start of it. They say Decken. But now you'll notice that Slame Spruck is kind of coming along. It is lagging. That is a little bit better. Okay. But this is the Slame, and there's not much to it. In the modern, I used to do this thing with my farms. I don't know if this used to be necessary or if I was just stupid, but I knew that one single block of water would saturate 4 blocks out, and I thought that meant in like a diamond shape, and so I stacked a bunch of diamond shapes together to get like a really big one. And then eventually, like, my sister told me, like, you know, you could do like a square, like it goes out in a square. You don't have to do it like that. You don't have to like try to figure out how to stack them together like that. I did not know that until like only a few years ago. I don't know if it's something they changed or if I've just been wrong this whole time, but this is how I used to do my farms. And these days, this right here is like a trade platform. There is a rail terminal right here, and it goes out to the big monorail that goes across the harbor. I kind of don't remember the potatoes being here. I do remember this. This was one of the first things I built. I am curious to know when the high platform is going to be built, because I don't remember when I built that. I never wrote it down. And I feel like I remember it being there from like the get-go. Like I remember it being like I feel like I remember it being as old as the dock, but clearly it's not, because it's not here. That is crazy to look at. It's just the east side of it. None of this has been really developed that much. There's no inn, there's definitely no JEP. I had not built that until the pandemic. This is still 2015. But we're gonna go forward a few hundred years. We're gonna see how how much it develops in that time. Okay, so admittedly this one is quite a jump in time. We have gone up to the 2800s. So this is the inn has been built. So sometime between at least the 2040s and the 2860s is when this inn was built. I could go through a few more of my saves. We are still, I think, in 2015. Let me double check. Actually, this is July of 2018 is when this backup was made. So this is so the wall's not here. The high platform is, though. That's big. What's also here is in the third millennium. That's when I kind of started expanding a little more. At this point, the dock takes on the role of storage room. I got rid of that tall tower storage room. I decided it looked ugly, and also the fact that I built this dock made me feel the need to make it come alive a little bit. I wanted it to feel like people traded here, so I had, you know, stuff just laying out right there, and then all of my chests were laid out on the dock because the dock was a place for people to trade. And you'll notice at this point I had started actually I'd actually started using my conlang here. I believe it was either in 2017 or 2018 that I started doing my conlang, and it was this is a very early version of Spruckler, the language of Spruckler. So this is in a region which nowadays speaks Phoenician, but this is like, if Phoenician is Italian, this is Latin, so to speak. So it's not a direct, I mean, it is a direct descendant, but it's, you know, Latin became a lot of different languages, and it just happened to start being spoken in the place where Italian is spoken now. You get what I mean. Like, there's all the languages of Spruck descend from this language right here. It was kind of inspired to a certain extent by Portuguese. Like there's like over here the word for food is foge, which if you speak Portuguese you'll know that is a very Portuguese way to pronounce that word right there. I was learning German too at the time, I think, so I had decided that if you've got an S at the start of a word and then there's a vowel, you pronounce it like a Z, so you would say zum stun instead of some. You pronounce it like an S. You'll notice there's a lot of instances where I just decide that a certain sound isn't going to be in the language, and so I decided, like, I tried to work back from English because I didn't know that much about the history of English. I used English as a starting point because I didn't want to worry about vocabulary that much. Except in the cases I did, I decided I would come up with a unique word for carrots. So I called them orange roots, and I just took those words and I like pushed them through this very systematic sort of like system. But like a lot of vowel digraphs I just got rid of. So double O for wood, I just made a single O. So birca is how you would say that in Spruckler. In Phoenician, I think you just say birtswaj, which is technically different. Phoenician is one of the more conservative languages in the Spruckler language family. Zum stun chibilge. Tabilgi, I think is how you'd say that. I don't know what I wish I had sat down and recorded like I do nowadays, the way that you actually pronounce these words, because I only kind of remember like the inspiration being German and Portuguese. Kind of. It really is just like German and Portuguese pronunciation on top of English. It really is like, and it was like the version of Old English that I had in my head before I actually understood like what the history of English really kind of looked like, because I did not know that much about the history of English. There's some of these words that like the word for wheat is really weird, because I decided that anywhere you have a WH that would be a Y, because I think I decided, no, that's not right. I think what it was anywhere you have a EA, you get a YA. So the word wheat was really weird because it was like a W and then a YA. So it would have been like Wiach. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. I'll just do Yachi. Zum Yachi is how you would say that in Spruckler. In, I think, Frisian, I had a rule where any word that was a count noun or like a mass noun, you had to put the word zum in front of it. So you can't just say yachi. You have to say zum yachi or zum skin. That is leather. That is the old word for I don't know why I don't have any arrows. That's really unfortunate. Where is the bed? I can't keep talking like this with these phantoms. I really should have gone to like an older version to show y'all. Oh, and this is, wow, this is before wow, this was before bubble elevators, so I had to do it like this. Oh Lord. The maps, I've noticed on a lot of these backups I've gone through some of these myself. They don't work, the maps. I would show you the map room, but it's not going to be it's going to kind of be a sight for sore eyes. I don't know if I've gone up here and shown you all the what it looks like from up here. The point of it was always to see like a bird's eye view of the city, but now of course I've expanded so far out that it's like kind of pointless, but it's like such a old symbol of power in the region. It's like, I'd like to redo it because it still kind of just looks like this. And it really does, it kind of reflects the old building style here. I used a lot of light blue because that was the sort of the color of the flag, but it in retrospect it does not, I think, match well with the dark wood. Anyway, I was talking about the word for leather. You got an EA here, so you make it like that, and I was like, that's kind of I don't like that word. I think you would have also, you'd have to swap that around, so it would have been like liazra, and I didn't like the lia, so I opted to just find a synonym for leather, and the closest thing that I could think of at 16 years old for some reason was the word skin, and so and there's nothing really that you do with that with these phonemes, so it just stays the same in Spruckler. But since then I decided the word hide is a better synonym for leather, and so that is in Phoenician it is ij, because H is silence, and the D gets kind of palatalized and turns into an affricate. The Slame, I think, is, I don't know if I've done much. Clearly I've moved the nether portal over here. It used to be in certain older backups, the nether portal is either on the high platform or somewhere in Burnt Spruck. Clearly I've moved it over here. I've got a tree farm over here now. I used to build all my tree farms exactly like that. And there's a lot of cobblestone. I really liked cobblestone back then. I liked the way it looked, I guess. I don't know why I used so much of it. But this is the map room. I've got it. I very specifically decided that the tunnel downward would be 555x, 555y. The maps do not work, but I wanted to show this to you anyway because it very hilariously, you can tell that I had built this room here for it, and then as I expanded out and like explored more of the world, the room clearly wasn't big enough, and so I had to, you know, dig down a bit and dig up a bit and out to both left and the right. And eventually, like, I kept going. I think the fourth millennium, the 3000s, that's where most of the work done on the map happened. And it got so big, like I had to have like ladders like all along this wall here. And you could not see it all at once because it was so far down this hole. And eventually I was like, you know what, this would be better if it was vertical. And so I had to go through the work of transferring all these maps that are scaled all the way in. It is like 1-to-1, like every pixel is a block. And put it all facing down, like on top of the block. I don't think you used to be able to do that in older versions of the game anyways, so it was like I kind of had to do it like this. And then as soon as it became possible to do it on top of the floor as opposed to on the wall, I made sure to do it like that. It was a lot easier. Akuna, I mentioned in my toponyms video, Akuna, it would be right here. It's right next to Ekin. So this was the Ekin dock. And in Finnish it was called Ekini, and then because of like vowel harmony reasons, they started calling it Okunu. So, but I've already explained all that. This is all that there is of Vinland. I don't think I've shown y'all much of Vinland, but this is what's called the old house. It is pretty self-explanatory. It's the oldest house in Vinland, and in Finnish that is Udalogus, or at least in like anglicized Finnish, that's how you pronounce it. Maybe one of these days I'll show you, like, I'll give you like a more proper tour of Vinland. There have been so many different things that I've built on this dock. This dock has served so many different purposes throughout the history of this world, and I've only shown you like a handful of them. This furnace wall stuck around for a while. The storage room over here is gone. I moved all that stuff from there to these chests on the dock, and then eventually, like after I built the city of Akuna, that became the more appropriate trading center in this part of the world. And so I moved all those chests from the dock to over here to be on the lake. But after that, the dock over here was totally empty. And so I built the temple here. This kind of became more of a less of a trading center and more of like a religious and historical district. I do want to stress, like, it's okay to like destroy stuff, you know, like if it's not your cup of tea anymore, if you don't like the way something looks, tear it down, you know, like that's what the backups are for. So you can go back and say, wow, I forgot this used to be here. This was, I think we skipped a version too. There used to be a pig pen here. Like I used to have just pigs, like a big penned in area of pigs. And I had completely forgotten about that. I had found that one when I was exploring these backups on my own. Anyway, moral of the story, as long as you've got backups, there's no reason not to destroy stuff. No reason not to tear something down. So just tear stuff down if you want. If you don't like it, if you change your mind about what you want to use an area for or what you want to use a city for, just tear stuff down, you know, make renovations. That's what screenshots are for, that's what photos are for, that's what backups are for. Just tear stuff down, you know. Don't have so much attachment to your forever world that you can't bring yourself to play in it because you're afraid of changing it. You know, that's what causes you to quit playing on it, is being too scared to touch it. You know, just tear it apart, destroy stuff. It's fun. I'm gonna destroy that. That's been there longer than anything else here, and I'm gonna destroy it. That's probably gonna be the next thing I do, because I've got other plans for the Ekin. It serves literally no purpose now. It's ancient historic district that used to do one thing, and it does not. I do not need it anymore, and so I want to completely rebuild it. And I feel comfortable with that because I've got these backups. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I hope to make more of them in the next few months. I've got plenty of time on my hands now, not having to worry about those two very difficult classes. I hope y'all are still interested. Anyway, y'all have a nice day. See y'all later.